The following training is sponsored by the Niagara Library System. We serve our member libraries in Niagara, Orleans, and Genesee counties. Please visit your local library homepage and use your library card to get access to streaming videos, downloadable music, audiobooks, ebooks, and even more from the comfort of your own home. Thank you. Hello. As always, it's good to see you. Today we are going to be talking about conflict, and actually good conflict. Is it possible to have good conflict? And yes, it is. And even better, the article I found here, you can see on the screen, by Amanda Ripley. We actually have her book, and she wrote the article in the Harvard Business Review, and it was how to work with someone who creates unnecessary conflict. But Amanda Ripley is an investigative journalist and the author of High Conflict, Why We Get Trapped and How We Get Out, by Simon & Schuster in 2021. We have this in our system. You can see I have a link there. It'll be in the description. I also want to simply pull up the record here in our Niagara Library System. Here it is, Amanda Ripley, High Conflict, and here it is in our system, and you can see, Corfu and North Tonawanda, hello, you have the book here. Let me go back to where we were here, and again, the article is here. Give the original author here some love. Let's talk a little bit about this. And Amanda Ripley, she starts off here in the Harvard Business Review saying, conflict at work comes in many forms. Good conflict, the kind that is healthy, pushes us to be better as people and communities. We can think of good conflict as our own fight against things like confirmation bias. We can think of it as constant learning, a choice to move forward and learn uncomfortable things. It's a choice that we make to actively learn, to actively follow rules. And again, I had talked about it a while back with dogs. Dogs play, and they have 4 rules that they follow, because dog play rarely escalates into something that's overtly aggressive or anything like that. Good conflict can be a good thing. But she goes on, Amanda Ripley goes on to say, but sometimes conflict can become malignant. It hijacks precious time, trust, and energy, turning allies against each other and distorting reality. This is what's known as high conflict, the kind that takes on a life of its own and eventually leaves almost everyone worse off. What causes high conflict is usually the presence of what she calls conflict entrepreneurs. These are people who inflame conflict for their own ends. Sometimes they do this for profit, but more often it's for attention or power. So again, skipping through, I'm not just going through the whole thing. One obvious response is to distance yourself from conflict entrepreneurs in your office or on your social media feeds. She talks about Facebook feeds here, but social media in general. Keep a safe distance from people who use all or nothing language or who delight in each new plot twist of a feud. What if you can't distance yourself from a conflict entrepreneur? Calling a conflict entrepreneur out is equally unwise. It can make things worse. And one of the ways that you note here is talk about a small tech company encountered a conflict entrepreneur. The manager says they were blindsided. There was no benefit of the doubt, and there was a lot of black and white thinking. It got to the point where they said they just didn't have the energy or desire to work with people who are doing this. The manager told them, and they were just exhausted. So what are the things that you can do for yourself? So there's a couple of things identified here. Identify the conflict entrepreneurs and quickly. The mark of a conflict entrepreneur is more about the way people engage in conflict over time. It's about a recurring pattern of dysfunction, extreme behavior, and perpetual blame. So they talk, Amanda Ripley talks to this here. Gary Friedman, a mediator and lawyer, says that if they're 90% conflict entrepreneur, try and speak to the 10% that isn't. Listen and try to understand. Not forever. That's really important, because things will rattle on and on and on. But try and listen long enough to make some sort of a connection and establish some sort of ground rules. Okay? There's an opportunity in there somewhere. So this Gary Friedman took a couple of people to a restaurant, what he called there a Camp David retreat. He asked two people, both, to identify a few common values to drive future interactions, such as respect. Then they brainstorm behaviors that would demonstrate these values, greeting one another with a kind word, or diminish respect or diminish the values, sending emails that might impugn another person's motives. Crucially, they also came up with a protocol for what to do when those values got violated, because we're human beings, we're obviously not perfect, and people are going to take things differently. So when you have a protocol or a few steps in place, and it can be as formal or as informal as you like, a few steps in place to diffuse that, or to say, hey, this is how I felt, you sent this email and I thought it was disrespectful. The other person has to then also, within the rules that have been decided, calm down and try and address that. So you can go back and forth with rules or a protocol, again, as formal or as informal as you like, that are pre-established though. Before the conflict happens, let's do this. That's really tough to do, but it's possible. It's possible. So in her book on global conflict called A Savage Order, scholar Rachel Kleinfeld describes how countries find a way out of endemic violence. The first step governments often take is to make bargains with warlords, giving conflict entrepreneurs political power in exchange for a little peace. The goal of these dirty deals, in quotes there, is to buy time while reformers reduce corruption and other systemic problems. It's a gamble, but ignoring the conflict entrepreneurs can be more dangerous. So you try and get everybody making decisions together instead of actually yelling at each other. Or, well, for the warlords, they might be going around killing people. That's not good. But hopefully in the business world, they're just yelling at each other. So the other thing with the protocol in that, and you can see here in this kind of hot pink highlighting, is to build guardrails. And that's part of that protocol that you can establish within your organization, is building guardrails. The best defense is a culture of good conflict where questions get asked, honest disagreement is encouraged, and everybody behaves with a baseline level of decency. But good conflict doesn't happen naturally. It requires rituals and boundaries, ways to lean into the tension, not avoid it or get consumed by it, or not take it personal, not go immediately to ad hominem attacks. You know, you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny, those types of attacks. It means creating alongside employees rules of engagement that everyone can hopefully agree to, or at least have the majority agree to. They go through a ton of good conflict practices in different organizations. If you have a problem, go to the person first if you can. Bring a proposed solution with you. Ask a lot of questions with genuine curiosity, things of that nature. Very importantly here, target problems, not people. Those are those ad hominem attacks that I just talked about. You need to go for the problem, not the person. Okay, and the end goal here is not to have zero conflict or no conflict, but to actually engage in good conflict, in discussions. In the tech company described earlier, the conflict entrepreneur eventually left by choice. It's so painful in retrospect, the manager told me, I wish we would have dealt with them sooner. The company, though, now is actively working to create better conflict rituals. We still have to have healthy conflict. It's how we get better. It is, this used to be things like debating, or, there's the real fussy Rogers rules of order and things of that nature, and how to run meetings and that, or Robert's rules of order. But this is the book, again, High Conflict. It is available here through the Niagara Library System at Corfu and North Tonawanda. Let me show you. There it is, available too. And you can always, just to go through this quickly, you can always end up, or, well, if you want to, you can place a hold for it. So let me go ahead and click place a hold. I'm going to enter my library card number and my PIN, and I'll be right back. Once I enter my library card number and PIN, I can pick which library I want to pick it up at, and I can place a hold, and I'm all set. Thank you, good luck, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.